On a rainy evening, a young man named Eli rushes into an empty train station, breathless, soaked, and shaken, only to find Mira, the girl he once loved and lost, sitting alone on a bench with a letter addressed to him. The shocking part, the letter is written in Eli's handwriting, but he never wrote it. The fluorescent lights above flicker and hum, casting strange shadows across the platform. Water drips from Eli's jacket onto the concrete floor, each drop echoing in the cavernous silence. He stands frozen, chest heaving, rain streaming down his face as he stares at the impossibility before him. Mira, after 3 years of absence, 3 years of carefully constructed forgetting, she's here, looking up at him with those same honey-brown eyes that once knew every corner of his heart. She doesn't stand, doesn't smile, just holds up the envelope, her fingers trembling slightly against the yellowed paper. "You wrote me?" she says quietly, and her voice is exactly as he remembers, soft, careful, like she's afraid of breaking something fragile. "You told me to meet you here, where love first found us." Eli's mind reels, his lips part but no sound comes. He takes a step closer, water squelching in his shoes, and she extends the letter toward him. He recognizes the handwriting immediately, the slant of the letters, the way the E curls at the bottom. It's his, unmistakably his, but the memory of writing it, empty, absent, like trying to recall a dream that dissolved the moment he woke. "I didn't," he starts, his voice hoarse. "Mira, I didn't write that." She looks at him then, really looks at him, and something flickers across her face. Hope, maybe, or its ghost. "Then why does it sound exactly like you?" The station announcer crackles overhead, announcing a delayed departure. Neither of them moves. The space between them feels charged with everything they never said, every conversation that ended too soon, every moment they almost reached for each other but didn't. "Can I see it?" Eli asks. Mira hesitates, then nods. He crosses the remaining distance between them and sits beside her on the bench. Not too close, but close enough that he can smell the faint scent of her perfume, something floral and familiar that makes his chest ache. She hands him the envelope. His name is written across the front in his own hand, along with instructions, to be opened only when you're ready to remember. His fingers shake as he pulls out the letter. The paper is old, creased, like it's been folded and unfolded many times. The date at the top stops him cold. November 17th, 3 years ago, the day everything fell apart. "Mira, I'm writing this at 6:47 a.m., sitting in the cafe where we spent every Tuesday morning for 2 years. The one with the terrible coffee and the owner who always burns the toast but somehow makes the best scrambled eggs you've ever tasted. I'm writing this because I've tried to tell you 100 times, and every single time, the words get caught somewhere between my chest and my throat. I love you. I've loved you since the first time you fell asleep in the library with your head on my shoulder, drooling slightly on my jacket, which you'll probably kill me for mentioning, but it's true and it's perfect and it's you. I've loved you through every late-night study session, every terrible movie we pretended to watch, every silence that felt more honest than words. I'm gonna tell you today. I bought your favorite flowers, the purple ones you can never remember the name of. Irises. I Googled it. I've been carrying them around all morning like an idiot, and I'm gonna meet you at the train station at 8 p.m. Platform 7. Where we first met 3 years ago today, when you asked me if this train went to the city and I lied and said yes because I didn't want you to leave. I'm gonna tell you everything. I'm done being afraid. E. The letter slips from Eli's hands. His breath comes shallow, rapid. Memories surge forward. Fragmented, painful. He remembers writing this. He remembers the flowers, their petals soft against his palm. He remembers standing on this exact platform at 8 p.m., heart hammering, rehearsing the words over and over. But she never came. "Where did you get this?" he whispers. Mira's eyes are glassy with unshed tears. "Inside the copy of The Great Gatsby you gave me. The one you said reminded you of US because of the green light and impossible longing. I found it 2 weeks ago when I was packing up my old apartment. It was tucked inside the back cover, like you'd slipped it there and forgotten. Eli closes his eyes. He had forgotten. After she didn't show up that night, after his calls went unanswered, after he learned she'd left for Melbourne without saying goodbye, he'd buried everything. The letter, the confession, the hope. He'd convinced himself it was for the best, that she'd made her choice, that he was never meant to be chosen. I waited, he says, his voice breaking. I waited for 2 hours. You never came. I never got your message, Mira says. And now the tears do fall, streaming silently down her cheeks. My phone died that afternoon. I had no idea you were trying to reach me. By the time I charged it the next morning, my mom was in the hospital. Emergency surgery. I flew out that same day. I meant to call you, Eli. I swear I meant to. But you didn't. The words come out harsher than he intends. 3 years of hurt condensed into 3 syllables. I thought you'd moved on. She continues, her voice trembling. When I finally tried to reach out a month later, your number was disconnected. Your apartment was empty. It felt like you'd erased me from your life completely. Eli runs his hands through his wet hair, frustration and longing warring inside him. I couldn't stay. Everything reminded me of you. Every street corner, every cafe, every goddamn song on the radio. So I left, started over, told myself it was better this way. They sit in silence, the weight of 3 lost years pressing down on them. The rain outside intensifies, drumming against the station's glass roof in a steady rhythm that sounds almost musical. Why did you come tonight? Eli asks finally. Mira wipes her eyes with the back of her hand. Because even though 3 years have passed, even though I tried to convince myself you'd forgotten me, I read that letter and I thought, what if? What if he's still the person who wrote those words? What if love doesn't have an expiration date? What if I'm brave enough, just once, to show up where I'm supposed to be? Something cracks open inside Eli's chest. He turns to face her fully, drinking in the sight of her. The way her dark hair falls across her shoulders, damp from the rain, the constellation of freckles across her nose that he used to trace with his fingertips in his imagination, the subtle sadness that settled into the corners of her mouth. I never stopped, he admits, the words raw and honest. I never stopped thinking about you, about us, about everything we could have been. Mira's breath hitches. Then why are we sitting here talking about the past? Why aren't we? But she doesn't finish the sentence because Eli is already moving, closing the distance between them, cupping her face in his hands like she's something precious and fragile.
He pauses, their faces inches apart, his thumb tracing the curve of her cheekbone. Is this okay? He whispers. It's 3 years too late, she whispers back, but yes, God, yes. When their lips finally meet, it feels like coming home after a long, exhausting journey. The kiss is soft at first, tentative, like they're relearning each other, then deeper, more urgent. 3 years of longing pouring into this single moment. Mira's fingers tangle in his wet hair, pulling him closer, and Eli realizes he's shaking. From the cold, from the emotion, from the overwhelming relief of finally getting to touch her the way he's dreamed about for so long. When they break apart, both breathing hard, Mira lets out a sound that's half laugh, half sob. I can't believe you're real. I can't believe this is happening. I'm real, Eli assures her, pressing his forehead against hers. And I'm not disappearing again, not unless you want me to. Don't you dare, she says fiercely. Another train announcement echoes through the station. The 9:15 to the coast, the same route they used to take on weekends when they needed to escape the city, back when they were just friends who definitely weren't falling in love with each other. Come with me, Mira says suddenly, standing and pulling him up with her. Let's go to the beach house, the one we used to talk about renting for a weekend but never did. Right now, I don't want to waste another second living in what-ifs. Eli glances at the departure board, then back at Mira's face, hopeful, vulnerable, achingly beautiful in the harsh fluorescent light. Every logical part of his brain is screaming that this is crazy, that they need to take things slow, that 3 years of silence can't be undone with one kiss and a spontaneous trip. But then he thinks about the letter he wrote 3 years ago, the courage it took to put his feelings on paper, the version of himself who believed in taking risks for love. Okay, he says, let's go. They board the train just as the doors are closing, collapsing into seats near the back of the empty car. The train lurches forward, pulling away from the station, from the ghosts of who they used to be. Mira leans against Eli's shoulder, her hand finding his, their fingers interlacing like they've done this 1,000 times before. "Tell me everything," she says softly. "Tell me about the last 3 years. Don't leave anything out." So he does. He tells her about the apartment in Sydney with the view of the harbor that never felt like home. About the job he took, managing a bookstore because he needed to be surrounded by stories even if he couldn't write his own. About the dates he went on that always ended the same way, with him, comparing someone to her and finding them lacking. About the therapist who asked him why he was so afraid of being chosen, of being loved, and how he couldn't answer because the truth was too painful. He didn't believe he was worth choosing. Mira listens without interrupting, her thumb tracing circles on the back of his hand. When he finishes, she's quiet for a long moment. "You know what I think?" she says finally. "I think you've spent so long protecting yourself from being abandoned that you abandoned yourself first. You left before anyone could leave you." The observation cuts deep because it's true. Eli swallows hard. "What about you? What have the last 3 years been like?" Mira sighs, her breath warm against his neck. "Hollow. I threw myself into work, into taking care of my mom after her surgery. I dated a guy for 8 months who was perfectly nice and perfectly wrong. I moved to 3 different cities looking for something that felt like home. But nothing ever did because home was never a place, Eli. It was you. It was us. It was Tuesday morning coffee and terrible inside jokes. And the way you used to look at me when you thought I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't subtle. Not even a little bit." She laughs, and the sound fills something inside him that's been empty for too long. "Everyone knew you were in love with me except apparently me. Or maybe I knew and I was just too scared to acknowledge it because what if I was wrong? What if I ruined our friendship? What if we'd just been brave enough to say it?" Eli interrupts gently. "Yeah," Mira whispers. "What if?" The train rocks gently as it speeds through the darkness. Rain streaks across the windows, turning the outside world into an abstract painting of lights and shadows. They sit in comfortable silence for a while, the kind of silence that only exists between two people who've known each other's thoughts before they're spoken. "I have a confession," Mira says eventually. "I wrote you letters too, dozens of them. Every time I missed you, every time something reminded me of you, every time I wanted to call but didn't. They're all in a box under my bed, stamped and addressed but never sent." Eli pulls back to look at her. "Why didn't you send them?" "Because I was afraid you'd moved on, that I'd be interrupting a life you'd built without me, and maybe I didn't think I deserved to be forgiven for leaving without explaining." "There's nothing to forgive," Eli says, and he means it. The anger he carried for so long has evaporated, replaced by something softer, more urgent. We were 2 scared kids who didn't know how to fight for what we wanted. But we're not those people anymore, aren't we? Mira challenges, but there's no bite in it. "You're still afraid of being abandoned." "I'm still afraid of being too much, of asking for more than I deserve." How do we move forward when we're carrying all of this? It's a fair question, one Eli doesn't have a perfect answer to. But he tries anyway. "We start with honesty," he says slowly. "We tell each other the truth even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. And we choose each other, actively, every day. Not because we're perfect or because we've figured everything out, but because we're worth the effort." Mira's eyes search his face, looking for something, reassurance maybe, or proof that he means what he's saying. Whatever she finds seems to satisfy her because she nods, a small smile tugging at her lips. "I can do that," she says. "I want to do that." The train begins to slow as they approach their stop. Through the window, Eli can see the dark outline of the ocean, waves crashing against the shore under a sky that's starting to clear. The storm is passing. They step off onto a small, deserted platform. The air smells like salt and rain, fresh and clean. The beach house Mira mentioned is just a short walk away, a place they'd found online years ago and dreamed about visiting, back when they were pretending their feelings didn't exist. "I can't believe you remember this place," Eli says as they walk, their shoulders bumping companionably. "I remember everything about us," Mira replies simply. "That's been the problem. The house is exactly as it looked in the photos. A small cottage perched on a cliff overlooking the water, with a wraparound porch and large windows that promise an incredible view come morning. Mira produces a key from her pocket. You rented it? Eli asks, surprised. 2 weeks ago, right after I found the letter. I didn't know if you'd actually come tonight, but I booked it anyway, just in case. Just in hope. Inside, the house is cozy and lived in, with comfortable furniture and a fireplace that Eli immediately moves to light. Mira disappears into the small kitchen and returns with 2 mugs of tea, handing one to him as they settle onto the couch. This feels like a dream, Eli admits, wrapping his hands around the warm mug. Like I'm going to wake up back in my apartment, and this will all have been a fantasy. Then let's make it real, Mira says. She sets down her tea and reaches for her bag, pulling out a small notebook. These are some of my letters, the ones I wrote to you. I want you to read them. Eli takes the notebook with reverent hands. The pages are filled with Mira's neat handwriting, dated entries spanning 3 years. He reads them slowly, savoring each word. They're raw and beautiful and heartbreaking, full of longing and regret and love that never faded. There are entries about mundane moments when she missed him. Entries about dates that felt wrong because they weren't him. Entries about dreams where they're together, where everything worked out the way it was supposed to. By the time he finishes, there are tears streaming down his face. Mira, he chokes out, you never forgot either. I couldn't, she whispers. I tried. God, I tried. But you're written into every part of me. Eli sets the notebook aside carefully and pulls her into his arms. She comes willingly, burying her face in his chest as they hold each other. The fire crackles in the background, casting dancing shadows on the walls. I'm sorry, Eli says into her hair. I'm sorry I made you feel like you weren't worth fighting for. I'm sorry I ran instead of staying. I'm sorry I wasted 3 years we could have spent together. I'm sorry too, Mira murmurs against his chest, for leaving without explaining, for being too afraid to reach out, for letting my fear be louder than my love. They stay like that for a long time, finding comfort in the simple act of being close. Eventually, Mira pulls back just enough to look up at him. What happens now? She asks. You live in Sydney. I live in Brisbane. How do we make this work? I don't know, Eli admits. But I know I'm not letting you go again. We'll figure it out, together. Maybe one of us moves. Maybe we meet in the middle. Maybe it's messy and complicated and hard, but maybe that's okay, because anything worth having is worth working for. Mira's smile is radiant, transforming her whole face. I like the sound of that. They talk through the night, sharing stories and memories, filling in the gaps of 3 lost years. They laugh about the terrible dates they both endured. They cry about the moments they wish the other had been there for. They make plans and promises, tentative but sincere. As dawn breaks, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, they stand on the porch overlooking the ocean. The storm has completely passed, leaving behind a world washed clean. Seagulls call in the distance. Waves roll gently against the shore. Eli thinks about the letter he wrote 3 years ago, the courage and hope contained in those words. He thinks about the person he was then, the person he is now, and the person he wants to become. Wait here, he tells Mira, pressing a quick kiss to her temple before heading inside. He finds a pen and paper in a drawer in the kitchen. His hand hovers over the blank page for just a moment before the words start to flow. Mira, 3 years ago, I wrote you a letter I was too afraid to send. I told you I loved you, but I never told you why. So here's the why. I love you because you see me. Not the version of myself I try to project, but the real me, flaws and fears and all. I love you because being with you feels like breathing, like something essential I didn't realize I was missing until I found it. I love you because you're patient with my walls and gentle with my heart, because you laugh at my terrible jokes and cry at the same movies I pretend not to cry at, because you make me want to be braver. I love you because 3 years apart didn't change a thing, because I still know your coffee order, and the way you scrunch your nose when you're thinking, because the sound of your laugh still feels like coming home. I'm done being afraid. I'm done running from the best thing that ever happened to me, so I'm making you a promise right now. In writing with witnesses, the ocean, the sunrise, and my own terrified heart, I choose you. Not just today, but tomorrow and the day after that and every day after. I choose us in all our messy, complicated, beautiful glory. I choose to show up, to be honest, to fight for this even when it's hard. This time I won't forget. This time I'm all in. Forever yours. He He folds the letter carefully and walks back out to the porch. Mira turns as he approaches, her hair catching the early morning light. And Eli's breath catches in his throat because she's so beautiful it hurts. "What's that?" she asks, nodding at the paper in his hand. "Something I should have given you 3 years ago," he says, handing it to her. But better late than never. Mira unfolds the letter, her eyes moving across the page. He watches her expression shift: surprise, joy, love, relief, each emotion playing across her features like music. When she finishes, she looks up at him with tears in her eyes. "This time I won't forget," she reads aloud, her voice thick with emotion. "This time I won't forget," Eli repeats, stepping closer until there's no space left between them. "Promise?" Mira whispers, her hands coming up to rest against his chest. "Promise," he says and seals it with a kiss. They stand there as the sun rises fully over the horizon, bathing them in golden light. The ocean stretches endlessly, before them vast and unknown, but somehow less frightening when you're not facing it alone. The world feels quiet, like it's holding its breath, giving them this moment. This isn't an ending, Eli realizes. This is a beginning. The real story, the one they've been trying to write for years, is just starting. And this time, neither of them is running away.